I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Anna Braun.
Here.
Timothy Cummings.
Here.
Jamie Falco.
Here.
Louis Figueroa.
Here.
Li Wu Hong.
Here.
I'm sorry, Lori Herrick.
Here.
Passed right over you by mistake. Sorry about that. Lori Lax. Wilbur Pan.
Here.
Heather Gloss.
Here. We have a quorum. Please rise to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, good evening. I would like to thank the board for being so flexible on such short notice and making the plans to be here. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting, wait, are we starting with that?
Yep.
Okay. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Laws was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the East Brunswick Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education office. Written notice was also provided to the Sentinel, the Newark Star Ledger, the Home News Tribune, and the Alternative Press of East Brunswick and Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings, with the exception of executive session, are videotaped for later broadcast. It is the policy of the Board of Education that videotaped meetings are not edited for any purpose. Individuals who speak at the board's public meetings should be aware of those videotaping rules. All right, and we begin this evening with the Finance Committee of the Whole.
Yes. Okay. Can you distribute these worksheets? Mark, you can have one. Here you go. So we're going to go through this worksheet. I'm going to go through each of the items as part of the recommendations. And then following my going through this, we're going to have a brief PowerPoint and then open it up for discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. So, looking on page 1, row 4, is the restoration of the co-teaching model for band and orchestra at Churchill. Row 5 is the restoration of the co-teaching model for band and orchestra at Hammersholt. Row 6 is the restoration of the Hammersholt school schedule to be as it currently is. Row 7 is reinstatement of one fine arts teaching position. This is a shared position between Hammersholt and Hammersholt and the high school. Row 8, reinstating the transportation to high school graduation and eliminating the employee mileage reimbursement that was associated with not providing the transportation. And that is providing equity across the student participants. Now, the next several items relate to late bus services. Row 10 is the reinstatement of Churchill late bus service 1 day per week. Row 11 is reducing the high school late bus service from 3 days to 1 day per week. Row 12 is reinstating the Hammersholt late bus service 1 day per week. Now, a little bit of information regarding those 3 items. So we had had the Transportation Department monitor the usage of each of the routes, and there are 4 zones within the town. So that's, 6 zones within the town. So that's 6 buses from each school servicing various aspects of the town. So here's some of the details. For the high school, of the 6 buses, the low usage was 4 students for the period of time assessed. The high was 18. The average was between 6 and 14 students per bus. At Churchill, the low was 1 student on a bus. The high was 28. the average was between 3 and 20 students per bus. At Hammersholt, the low was no students on the bus. The high was 13 students on the bus. The average was between 4 and 8. So based on those numbers, it seems that reducing to 1 day a week is certainly feasible and would continue to provide students the opportunity to participate in clubs and activities, benefit from the use of the late bus service, and it provides a certain amount of equilibrium across the board. Next, on page 2, transportation. This is the restoration of full-time bus drivers back to 8 hours per day. This is an item that would have to be negotiated, so that has to come off the table. Item 4, row 14. This is a reduction in 2 teaching staff members at Hammersholt. This is strictly due to enrollment. It does not impact the program. The next series of rows, from row 15 through row 27 on page 3, are all reductions in summer staff development. So this is a reduction in summer staff development for practical arts, artificial intelligence, flex, the arts, ILA for K-6, English for grades 7 to 12, world languages and ELL, science 7 to 12, science K to 6, math 7 to 12, math K to 6, social studies, and health and PE. This is not eliminating all staff development. The necessary aspects of staff development will be retained. So these can be reduced. Row 28, the abolishment of 2 full-time bus driver positions. These are vacant positions, not currently occupied, and the Transportation Department assessed and determined that they can continue to provide services with the existing staffing. These 2 positions can be reduced, but they did request, as is shown on row 29, that one of the 2 positions be converted to a part-time position. That's 5.7 hours daily. The next several items pertain to athletics. So the first one on row 30, it's the abolishment of a coaching stipend for freshman fall cheer. These are all due to low participation. So, for example, on this first one, for freshman fall cheer, there are only 5 participants. On row 31, for freshman baseball, in fiscal 2024, there were 10 participants. In the current year, there are 10 participants. And in each of these instances, the students have the opportunity to join, there's ample room on the teams to join the JV or even varsity if they made it up at the high school. And there is transportation up to the high school. Row 32, abolishing the stipend for freshman softball. Again, low participation. Last year, there were 10 participants. This year, there are 9. On row 33, freshman girls soccer. There are 9 participants this year. And then row 34, for varsity gymnastics, there are 8 participants. So the recommendation is reducing from 2 coaches to 1 coach. Moving on. Row 35, 36, and 37. We have received transportation contract renewal commitments from several of our largest contracted services. And they have agreed to a 2% increase rather than the CPI. And the CPI that under the state regulations was, I believe, 3.51%. So as a result of those contracts coming in at less, we're able to make reductions in those areas. Those total approximately $110,000. Row 38, a reduction in contractual professional memberships. This is associated with positions that the board gave consensus to reducing previously, and they are reflected in the tentative budget. On page 5, row 39, this is a reduction in contracted interpreter services. And this is a result of efficiency. We've been able to assess over the last year how that utilization has been, the extent to which utilization is needed, and so we're able to make a reduction here. In document translation services, the same thing applies. We're able to make some reductions in that area as a result of our experience over the last year. Row 41 is a reduction in EduClimber program. The vendor has updated his quote and given us a new number, and so this is an additional savings. Row 42, it's a small amount, but it's the Summer Academy celebration. And then the last item on row 43 is Grape Seed Pre-K program. This is for the bilingual ESL program, and that would be an acquisition that would be deferred. Karen? So, okay, so now let's go through some additional data. What does all of that mean? We're going to begin with tax levy incentive aid data. Now, this is information received directly from the Department of Education. During the presentation on the tentative budget at the last meeting, this is something that I mentioned. The state had not provided any information on this as yet, and we literally just received this last week. So it's taken us a little bit of time to go through and analyze the information. All school districts are not entitled to utilizing this. There are approximately 340 school districts in the state that have been determined to qualify for this program. Now, this first screen has some data, and as I said, this all comes from the state. What the state tells us is that East Brunswick is spending below adequacy. Adequacy components include tax levy and several components of state aid. And given the current state aid and tax levies, the state is determining we are below adequacy. State is also telling us, and this was reflected in our tentative budget documents, we have available bank cap of $292,000, and the maximum additional expenditure that could be requested is under $2.8 million. So what does all of that mean? What that means is that the total expenditure request, as I said, may not exceed the almost $2.8 million. The tax levy portion of that is $2.6 million. The tax levy incentive portion is $132,000, or 5% of the $2.78 million. Based on the data that we just reviewed on the worksheets with the add backs and the reductions, if you look in the gray area, what is proposed is total expenditure request of $1,132,000, of which $1,079,000 is related to the tax levy, and almost $54,000 is related to the state's aid portion. Now, that additional amount is about 0.74% of an increase. So one of the questions I think that folks have is, well, what does that mean in terms of dollars? You know, how does that affect us individually? So this is just based on a property tax bill of $10,000. So one would have to extrapolate to have this convert over to what this means for an individual's tax bill. The school tax portion of a tax bill makes up about 65%. So of that $10,000, about $6,500 would pertain to school taxes. And that's based off of the current situation. The tentative budget, which was already approved, reflected a 2.83% increase in the general fund and the debt service fund. You'll recall the debt service fund, because of the way the mortgage payments, they ebb and flow. So sometimes they go a little bit up, sometimes they go a little bit down, but basically that's included in there. So the tentative budget increase was 2.83%, or about $184 per year. The cost of the net budget restorations, so that list that we just went through, the reductions and the add backs don't net out. So the cost of those net budget restorations is less than 1%, 0.74%, or comes out to approximately $48 per year. So the combined of the two brings the levy increase to approximately 3.57%, or $232 per year.
All right. Are we going to go, you want me to take everyone through line by line?
Whatever your pleasure is.
All right. I think for the purpose of the board, we're going to go through line by line and seek consensus on just each line of this. And then we can have discussion after that, overall discussion. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. I do want to remind the board that everything that we just saw is based on all of this. So if we don't have consensus on any one, then that would change the number for the levy, and, all right, for calculation sakes. All right, for line 4, to reinstate the co-teaching model of the band and orchestra positions. Do I have consensus here? In favor? All right, we have consensus there.
Okay.
To restore the co-teaching model for 5th and 6th grade band and orchestra?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we have that. To restore Hammersholt School to its current status?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we have that. To reinstate line 7, the one fine arts teacher?
Yes.
On this side, Tim? Okay, over here? Okay. Number 8, graduation transportation? Over here?
Yes.
Okay. We're good for 8. Number 9 is an elimination of the employee mileage.
Right, that's tied to number 8.
That's tied to 8. All right, so those two just go together.
Let's just confirm consensus.
All right, we're good for both 8 and 9 together? You and here? We are good. Number 11 is,
10.
10, thank you, is to reinstate the Churchill bus, 1 day a week, the late bus? Leva?
Yes.
I have a quick question. How is that, what day is that? How is that determined? How does that all work out?
We haven't, we'll look at each of the days, but it's likely that each day would be a separate day. we're going to take a look at what works best and
Well,
we'll work with the schools.
We'll coordinate around schedules for clubs and activities after school.
I got you.
Right.
So that's going from 5 days now down to
Three.
3, excuse me.
3.
Okay.
So just as a reminder,
Yep.
Churchill was eliminated
Yep.
for late buses, so we're putting back 1 day.
Okay.
Hammersholt was also eliminated for had late buses eliminated. They'll be going, based on this recommendation, the board's consensus would go back for 1 day a week.
1 day.
And the high school would be reduced from 3 to 1 days.
Got you. Thank you.
Is it possible to have that 1 day rotate, just to kind of spread the pain around?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have consensus on that to this side? Over here? Yes, we do. All right, 11, to reduce the high school late bus from 3 days to 1 day. Over here?
I have a question on that.
Yes.
We originally had wanted to keep that in so it would be more equitable for students in terms of getting to clubs and activities that they needed for college. So I'm not sure how we're going to do that if we're reducing the amount of days for students to have transportation on the late bus.
Well, to go through the data again, the high school late buses, in terms of student use, the low, now there are 6 buses. So on 6 buses, the low was a usage of 4 students. The high was 18. So the average throughout the period was between 6 and 14 students per bus. So there'll be opportunity for students to be able to utilize the buses and still participate in clubs and activities.
If their club and activity is on a day of a bus.
Well, that'll be part of the
alignment.
management and the
So that-
scheduling.
That's something you're going to have to,
Yeah, we'll have to
Yes.
align.
All right, again, consensus to this side? Are we okay?
with alignment, yes.
Over here? Yes. All right, to reinstate the Hughes late bus service 1 day per week. Tim? Okay, over here? All right, we are good there. All right, number 13, we are restoring the full-time bus driver schedules from 8 hours to 7 hours.
From 7 to 8.
Oh, sorry, 7 to 8, I'm backwards.
Okay.
Do I have consensus over here for that?
Yes.
Okay, over here? Yep, we've got it. Number 14, that's a reduction in teaching staff due to decreases in enrollment. Consensus over here?
Can we get more details as to which teaching staff, or is that a closed session?
It's indicated on the chart. I mean, somewhat.
Yeah, more detail than what's on the chart. If not, that's fine. I just wanted-
With what I have right now, I don't have the specifics for that.
Okay.
We can get it for you, though.
Yep.
Over here? Questions, consensus?
Yeah, kind of go over it. Just
Okay.
to know what it's about.
So would I.
All right. Can I just lop together the summer staff ones?
Summer staff would be
15 through,
through 27.
all right, that's the summer staff development. That's not all of it, it's just what's listed there, 15 through 27. Do I have consensus over here for that?
Yes.
Lou?
Okay.
Okay.
Can
Over
we
here.
elaborate on that a little bit more, too? I just don't fully understand what
Dr.
happens
Foley.
there.
We met with each of the supervisors and department heads and brainstormed with them on what was really pertinent, relevant, timely work that has to be done this summer and what could be deferred throughout the school year and at department meetings and so forth. So this is a reduction, it's not eliminating all of summer PD.
And everything required would remain.
That's what is reflected here.
So consensus to this side? Yes? And we had over here. Okay. We are on
28 and 29.
28 and 29, which are the bus driver positions. Consensus over here? Lou?
Yes.
Lou?
Okay.
All right, over here? We are good there. All right, 30, I'm going to put together the athletics, so if we want to discuss, we can discuss. It'd be 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Do I have consensus over here?
Discussion.
There we go. Discussion. Go ahead, Lou.
All right, I don't know much about the freshman fall cheer. What would be an optimum amount of students to participate? Anybody? I mean, I don't know if anyone has that answer. Because 5 seems low, but I can't say for sure because I don't know the answer to that.
Between 12 and 18.
Okay, it's a big difference between 12 and 18.
There's plenty of room to move up on JV for the fall.
Joe, could you please, if you don't mind?
Yeah, you might want to come up here. I have a couple other questions. Joe, you might
Joe,
be
you
a
can
good one
have
to
a
answer
seat.
this one, too. All right, so,
Treat you as nice as the student rep.
so 5 seems to be a low amount, is what you're saying. Okay, so let's look then at, the next one would be freshman baseball. Now, I see 2 years. I see 24 and then 25 years, 10-10. What would be an optimum amount of baseball players on a team where everybody gets a chance to play? About, roughly?
In
I want your,
my
well, you're a
opinion.
baseball guy, that's what I'm
Well,
asking you.
So 10 to last the whole season is very difficult, so
Mm-hmm.
you would want between 15 and 18. The
18 is
JV and varsity teams both have about 15 players. We provided both numbers because at the time, tryouts were still taking place. Now the season started. So the other challenge that we have with some of these freshman teams is finding teams to play. There's, especially like in girls soccer, freshmen, softball, baseball, there's a lot of games that get canceled because other schools can't field teams, or freshmen's the first team or game to get canceled when there's not enough umps.
Because I know
So-
one of the recommendations was to reduce the schedule but keep the program.
Right.
So when I look at 10, and I may disagree with you, I think 18 kids is a lot on a baseball team. It's not a fast-moving game. It's a slower-moving game. If you want kids to really play and get at experience and be part of a team, I agree with anywhere from 12 to 15 would do that.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
It's okay.
I'm just going off of experience from when my son was in high school, and typically there were 20, 22 kids on the varsity team. I don't know what JV was.
Yeah.
He didn't play JV, I'm sorry.
Right, because he was a good player, so you didn't have to worry about that. Another question regarding that, do you have any idea how many kids, 8th graders, are presently playing baseball, since we're on baseball right now?
I do not have that number in front of me, I'm
Well, I
sorry.
believe it's 15 8th graders, and I do believe there were cuts between the whole team. So that does show that there would probably be quite a number of students that would be looking forward to doing that next year. I don't have the exact number for the freshmen, for the softball, but I will say 9, 10 players, I just feel like we're cutting programs that are right on the cusp just to save a few $1,000s when I think these kids and these families have been playing for a long time. And I would rather say, let's go recruit more kids, especially when I know for a fact middle school baseball how to make cuts. So when I look at it that way, I'm saying to myself, you have a good problem. We're making cuts at the lower levels, but now, because we had to make cuts because there were too many kids on the team, now we're going to reduce the program as we go forward. That doesn't jive with me.
I think one of the things, and again, just based off of my experience, the 8th grade team, a lot of interest changed the 9th grade, and maybe that's what we're seeing. That's why we also provided 2 years of data, that the numbers are low for baseball and softball. I don't know how you field a team and get through with 9 players when it takes 9 to play. If somebody's sick, injury, it becomes very tough.
Okay.
So,
Well, without belaboring it, because I understand you're not in position to really speak, you're doing me a favor just trying to hash this out. But from my understanding, there's plenty of kids who want to play, but because there's only one coach that was hired, you have one coach with 20 kids. That's what the 8th grade team did last year. So they tried to make it equal, 8th grade, 7th grade, 10 kids each. But with one coach, it's almost impossible to make sure everyone's safe and learning and being watched at all times at the same time. So instead of cutting the program, I would almost recommend that you would suggest possibly to add another coach at these levels so that you could have someone working with both groups. Again, the strength of this district is what our offerings are. I can get an AP class anywhere. and it's not putting down AP classes, but for me, when I look at what we offer kids above and beyond the classroom, which would include the band, the orchestra and everything, that's where I say we're falling short here. So we're reducing it because the numbers are low, because we're telling coaches, you can't have 25 kids on a team. There's no way you can manage that. One coach managing that many baseball players, it wouldn't work. So, I mean, I happen to know for a fact that right now I believe it's 14 or 15 eighth graders on the baseball team. Those kids are looking to go next year to play freshman ball. And there were cuts. Now, I don't know if eighth graders were cut. I know seventh graders were cut. So I think instead of saying, let's reduce the program, I think we should be looking at how we can explore ways to possibly add to the program so that we, again, address the needs of more of our kids, not less. And I'm not blaming that. That's not you. I'm looking at you because we were talking about baseball.
Yeah, I feel you looking at me.
Can I add in there, just from my own experience, not with baseball, but I know that when the students moved from 8th grade to 9th grade, the 8th grade team was very large. The 9th grade team wasn't actually very large, even though all the kids moved, because some of the 9th graders went up and played JV. So the 8th grade team had been, like you said, the 8th grade team had a lot of interest, and then when the 9th grade team wasn't as large because some of the players immediately were pulled up to JV and one to varsity, interestingly. But the question I was going to ask is, are we encouraging the coaches to increase the size of the JV team, or are we just,
Well, if we do that, wouldn't we have to also increase the number of coaches that we have to, right? Wouldn't that make sense?
if we're increasing to try to pull in 10 more kids or 8 more kids? I don't know.
Yeah.
The varsity team does have several coaches.
Right.
At least
Varsity.
2, and typically there's a volunteer coach. At the JV level, off the top of my head, I don't remember the number.
Okay, so can I ask a question and I want to make sure that we all get the same information. So what I'm hearing is that we're going to reduce a coach, not we're going to reduce the program, or is the program gone? If someone was to say, I want to volunteer to coach freshman softball, would that be an option? Because it's part of the program. Varsity coach could say, I have someone that I might want to coach that team. Is that something that is possible if we had the numbers of kids? Or are we saying, because the coaching stipend is out, program's closed?
Dr. Figueroa, I think that's an option because the board would have to consider that person for approval on a board agenda as a volunteer coach. So by that acknowledgement, the board would recognize that you want to run that sport. But I'm just looking at this. If you're looking at the cost numbers, then in terms of equity, you'd have to consider doing the exact same thing with girls soccer.
Well, I might even get there yet.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
agree. I mean, if I'm the head coach in any of these sports, and I want my program to continue to flourish, I'm going to beat the bushes to try to get more kids out. That's true. But in addition to that, I'm going to try to get someone to run that program. So if we have it in the budget, that we have the transportation, we have the schedule, we have uniforms, whatever we need, we just can't pay for a coach, which I can't see that we couldn't do that. But if that's what I'm hearing, then if I'm a head coach, I'd like that option, to be able to put someone in there that might say, I'd like to volunteer coach the team. So I guess my question is, do we have all the money? Is it just the coaching stipend we're reducing? Or have we already said?
Yeah, no, it's just the coaching stipend.
Oh, well, I think that's an option that should be provided to the teams. And that's, and even for 1 year, if they can get the numbers up, I think then the following year, they should be paid again. I don't want to reduce it right now, to be honest with you. I think that's a mistake.
Aren't there, aren't there additional fees that would also be included in this when you factor this in? I mean, if we eliminate the program, there's supplemental fees as well in terms of, we save on transportation, we save on ref fees, on all sorts of other things that come out of that. I mean, this in total, it's about $30K or less, right?
It's about $27,000.
Yeah, it's not that much
Right.
money really for the 5 things. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Lou. I don't have enough experience or knowledge to know whether or not, the interest is there, right? I mean, a field, a girls' soccer team of 9 players doesn't even field a squad.
Right.
Right? You need 11. So are they even competing? right? Like, I just don't know. But I agree with you in the sense of the comprehensive approach that this district needs to continue to maintain, right? And so I am concerned about this as well. I mean, for the sake of 27K, I'm
Right.
concerned about it.
I guess that's my
Yeah.
point. That's why if you told me that you had taken out all of expenses related to that program, you have more of a significant savings, but again, at what cost? So if we're talking about $27,000, I think we're approaching this the wrong way. I think we should be looking to add a coach so that now those kids who were cut could possibly go out on a team as a freshman girls. And I don't know that the freshman softball team was cut. I know, I'm sorry, girls middle school softball. I don't know if they were cut, but I know the boys baseball was cut. There were cuts. So kids who wanted to play cannot play because there were too many kids on the team. And now what we're going to tell them is next year, when you're freshmen, for those eighth graders, you won't have a team. So there's a double hit. I didn't make it when I was in eighth grade, let's say, or whatever, seventh grade, and now I won't have an opportunity. Now I have to look at maybe playing JV or varsity when I didn't even have an opportunity to play middle school. So I just think we're looking at it, in the wrong way.
Do we have the number for 2022, 2023 for both softball, baseball, and softball teams?
No, we don't.
Not at our fingertips.
Okay.
We can get that information, though.
All right. Anyone else?
Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So if an athlete tries out if this were to go into effect and an athlete tried out for the JV team because the freshman team was no longer an option, there is the possibility that that athlete could not make that team, whereby they would no longer have sports for that period of time, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So I have one more question about the gymnastic coach. So this gymnastic is very high-risk sports. So one coach is enough to make sure every athlete are safe. That's for line 34.
Right.
If you don't mind. So, not too long ago, we only had one coach for gymnastics, and that was an ad due to the numbers, popularity, and the numbers are down to 8. So just reviewing everything that we could review and trying to come back and close this budget gap, that was part of the recommendations. 2 coaches to 8 athletes is a very high ratio, with the understanding that, the bars and the horse thing, I'm sorry, I'm not a gymnastic
No, but
person.
that's- you're right, that's a lot of-
Is a little bit more technical and dangerous, so, but it can be done with one coach.
So when was the second coach added? Do you have any idea?
That's a good question.
It's, I want to say within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I can't give you an exact year, but I do know the second coach was added.
So is that possible in future, if more students get involved, we can add second?
Absolutely. I mean, the
Yeah.
board could certainly make those changes.
Or look to add a volunteer coach. That's always an option. And a lot of programs do use volunteer coaches. So,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
A lot of our programs now have some volunteer coaches and some stipended for the large teams.
Yes.
Like Lou was saying, how do you manage that many kids with one stipended coach? We have some track and field is enormous, but we have stipended coaches and then volunteers as well. All right, for 9th grade, do we have a consensus is the question,
Well, this was as a group.
as a group?
What you're doing
Can I
this,
just,
so.
Sorry,
excuse me,
sorry.
Do you wanna break
can
it
I just
down?
ask a
Do we
quick
want to break
question
it down
about
and do
the-
one at a time?
Well, I
Yes.
just have a question at large, because we're proposing cuts to the stipend for 4 freshman sports. That's $21,757 for 34 students. It's an average spend of about $640 a student. But
how do you put a price tag on an experience? And I hear what Lou is saying. So I wonder if there's a way to modify the stipend based on participation, if there's any option for negotiation, or is it just based on contractual obligation?
contractual.
Gotcha, so it's volunteer or stipend?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I need to know where the board is at with this.
I'd like to explore other opportunities to solve this.
I have a question too, and this is a legal question. Because freshman sports are on their own, we're talking about, can a volunteer do that? Would there be any issue with a volunteer running and being alone with the kids without any other coaches around? Now, assuming the person passed all the other,
The background check.
background check and
Yeah.
everything else. It could even be a staff member.
Right.
But I just want to make sure there's nothing legally that would prevent us from having a volunteer coach be alone and running a team by themselves, because that's not normally what happens.
No, you'd have to-
Normally, at the higher levels, you have your volunteers, as Heather was saying.
Yeah, you'd want a certificated individual, you'd want somebody who's experienced, who's demonstrated sufficient experience. Of course, the criminal background check and all that
Yeah.
would have to be vetted, and the person would have to pass, but you'd also, if it was only a volunteer, you'd want to be sure that they had sufficient skill and experience to
Assuming
run
that-
the team.
Right, so assuming that we had that, I just want to make sure there's nothing that prevents us from having a volunteer coach running a whole team by themselves. Not someone who gets paid. I just don't know. I don't recall ever seeing that anywhere, so that's why I'm asking.
Well, you just would want to make sure they had the requisite
Okay.
credentials and experience from a liability perspective and from a efficacy perspective to actually fulfill that duty. But subject to all the experiential and background checking coming through, you
There's
could.
nothing that would prevent it.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
All right. So we are looking at 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. And just remind you, what we don't have consensus for here then has to be found elsewhere. All right, to this side?
I'm sorry, 34.
I'm sorry.
is I'm so sorry, is the one of two coach stipends.
Correct.
for
Yes.
varsity. So you're lumping that one in with the.
If you would like me to
Could we-
unlump that
could we-
one?
Yeah,
Could
I'd
we
like that
please?
one.
Sure. So through 33. Do we have consensus or no? I need heads to shake in some
No
direction.
consensus here.
No.
Okay, we do not have consensus on 30, 31, 32,
And 33.
33. All right, as to number 34, reducing gymnastics from 2 coaches to 1.
So I'm going to ask again, so that in this case, if you do have a paid coach, that program could, for 1 year, get a volunteer coach.
Correct.
So then that way, if they were able to get the numbers up, the following year, we could
Right.
reconsider that.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. So I feel better about that one. At least you have someone getting paid to do the job.
All right, to this side, consensus on
Yeah,
gymnastics?
on that one.
To this side? All right, we have yes on gymnastics. All right, taking us to number 35. I'll just do one at a time. Number 35. Oh, no, that's
You
the
can 35,
35,
36,
36, and
and
37. That was the companies being willing to reduce.
Yes.
Oh, let us say yes to that. Yes?
Yeah, that's good.
We are in favor of that. All right, number 38 is our professional memberships. Consensus over here?
Yes.
Over here? We are good there. All right, moving ahead to 39 and 40. Those are both on the translators, right?
Yes.
Consensus over here? I'm sorry, I keep changing which side I go to. I
That's
feel-
okay. Can we get a bit more
Yeah.
detail on that and
That's
how
what I
that's
wanted to
currently
ask.
being used?
Number 39 or 40?
Well,
Well,
39.
39 first.
Yeah, 39.
Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
So In the current year, we switched over to an interpretation service that we call into like a hotline. And based off of year-to-date numbers and projecting out, that amount can be greatly reduced. When we were using in-person translation, of course, that's very expensive, so trying to be as efficient as possible, we switched over not knowing exactly how much that service was going to cost because it's based off of use. It's similar to like 911 if somebody calls and needs a translation, right? So based off of going through teachers' conferences and all that, we were able to reduce it.
So Joe, just so we're clear, so that means there really is not going to be any
There's no reduction in
concern-
service.
A reduction in service?
Correct.
concern
There's
that
still money.
parents aren't gonna-
Right,
okay.
right.
Yeah.
There's still money for the service, but we
Just-
have
it's a way-
determined
a different way
we can
Right.
reduce that.
It's in
that-
both of these. There's no reduction
Right.
in services. We were just able to, once we had the experience under our belt, to know how much have we been utilizing the services and what that cost has been, able to reduce the budget, but we're not eliminating the budget.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Joe.
All right, consensus for that? That's
Consensus.
lines 39 and 40. Over here? We're good? Over here? All right, we are good for 39 and 40. Number 41, the EduClimber.
Yes.
Over here? And over here?
I have no idea what that is, I'm sorry.
Dr. Boley?
It's our data visualization tool.
We're not eliminating it. It's the contract, the company came back with a lower cost for renewal, and that's what this is reflecting.
Are we okay with them reducing our cost?
Yes.
Please say yes. Please say yes. Okay. Number 42, sorry, I lost my place for a second. I feel sad about that, but,
Can I ask about that?
yeah.
Because I understand this ESL Summer Academy celebration. I'm sure this means a lot to that group of people. Just, could we just discuss what that would mean?
Yeah, ESL is eliminated for the summer.
Oh, so
We're not
we've
running it, just
completely
like this
elim-
past summer.
so there'll
So
be
there's no
nothing.
need
So that
going back
was-
through and line by line through
You
the
filed
budget.
$400. So it's
Yeah,
not,
so-
kids aren't going to be.
No, they're not
around for
missing
that.
out on
Okay,
anything.
thank you. That's all I need to know.
All right, consensus over here? And over here? Okay, good. And the deferred acquisition of grapeseed, number 43. Over here? And over here?
What does deferment look like?
It looks like looking to potentially fund it in the next budget cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. Any grants or opportunities for, I know we can talk about the whole other.
Yeah. Academics will continue to look for those, but, you know, if they come up, then great. But that's a renewable program, so it would have to be sustained.
All right,
Okay.
we have consensus on those two.
Yes.
All right, anything else with us?
No.
All right. That brings us to the good of the cause for the public. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. In order to permit the fair and orderly expression of such comment, the board shall provide a period for public comment at every meeting of the Board of Education. Residents are welcome to speak for up to 3 minutes. The timing will be kept by the board secretary. I would just request when you step up to speak that you give your name and address, unless you are a student. If you're a student, if you could just state your name and your school. Bless you. Is there anyone wishing to address the board this evening? Come on up. Oh, and just give us 1 second. We're doing a quick switch of seats. Are we keeping these, or are we turning back in
Joe will
the,
collect those.
Okay.
So the spreadsheets will come back.
this has to come back.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your patience.
Tim O'Neill, 15 Carter
Just
Road.
1 second, 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Tim O'Neill, 15 Carter Road. A lot of what I prepared, actually, Mr. Figueroa addressed some of it, so it's going to throw me off a little bit as I go through my notes. I just came from the JV baseball game where the boys played in wind that made it feel like it was well below freezing today, and they all jogged off the field with smiles on their faces. For many of our games, the freshman and JV teams are combined, leaving approximately 20 players on the varsity team and about 20 players on the JV team. For the record, that is way too many. 18 is too many, although I disagree with that number. You have more players on the bench than in the game with our current configuration. With only 9 players on the field at a time, this simply means that some of these young athletes will rarely, if ever, get a chance to play in a game at all. We should be encouraging involvement in these programs instead of making participation more difficult. One of the reasons the enrollment is even being discussed is because we've recently had a rash of players leaving East Brunswick to go play in private schools and even moving to neighboring towns because they find the programs there more enticing. And since athletics is one of our 3 keys, that's especially disturbing to me. Maybe if we actually showed we valued these programs, that would not be the case. As Mr. Figueroa highlighted, picking and choosing to eliminate these few will save very little money while drastically impacting students for whom these sports are their major passion. Also, cutting high school programs for next year based on this year's numbers is short-sighted. As Mr. Figueroa pointed out, using middle school or youth enrollment numbers would make a lot more sense. In the fact that people in the big chairs at the front of the room here came to this meeting planning on cutting these programs without considering the fact that you're looking at the wrong numbers is especially disturbing to me and unfortunately emblematic of what I've seen in the district of late. My main concern, really, beyond sports, is big picture decision making, such as the building of the temporary structure in Churchill. 2 years ago, it was decided that our elementary schools were so overpopulated that we needed to build the temporary structure and reorganize the entire district in order to accommodate all of our students. But this year, as soon as cuts were being discussed again, one of the first things discussed was cutting Bauman Row, my students' elementary school where they recently went. It makes no logical sense that we went from bursting at
15
the
seconds.
seams to the extent that we needed to add that temporary structure to having such low enrollment that we need to close buildings in the space of 2 years. That simply doesn't make sense. As for looking for places to find the $21,000 that would save all freshman sports, I would love to know the total cost of the raises for the administrators who got us in this financial predicament.
Thank you.
Because that's where the cut should start.
Allegra Seidler, 12 South Woodland Avenue. As you know, since November, parents have come here to speak about the elementary language arts curriculum. While we have paused during this budget crisis, this issue just really cannot fade into the background. Ineffective reading instruction is a budget issue. We've shared examples on both ends of the spectrum where students are struggling with ineffective curricula, bored and unchallenged, or confused and denied interventions. Yet, there's been no public discussion of how we're evaluating our investment into a product and methodology that is being removed from schools internationally. Our latest school report card shows that nearly 30% of students district-wide still aren't reaching proficiency in language arts. And even after our district proficiency target was lowered, we still didn't meet it. At a time when we know that 95% of kids, including those with special needs, can learn to read, what's the excuse? We have great teachers, involved parents, and motivated students. Families are already paying for private testing and tutoring, not to enhance the curriculum, but to reverse it. We keep hearing about costly out-of-district placements. Some of those placements are actually related to structured literacy instruction, including cases the district has litigated and lost. In February, teachers were surveyed regarding the curriculum. Where is that feedback? Also in February, the state published recommendations from the Student Literacy Working Group, which highlights the importance of high-quality instructional materials for all students. While the revised units of study, which is one thing that we use here, has yet to be evaluated, historically, both units of study and Fountas and Pinnell were given failing marks by Ed Reports, one of the recommended material screening tools. With this in mind, and the new state literacy requirements set to take effect later this year, which require high-quality instructional materials, what is the plan to adapt? There's a saying, not to sound too cliche, it's better to build a fence at the top of a cliff than park an ambulance at the bottom. Ignoring this curriculum issue, punting interventions to higher grades, increasing taxes to pay for short-sighted planning, that's the ambulance, and we deserve the fence. Thank you.
Thank you, Allegra.
Good evening, Board. Jeff Winston. God, shock, you hear that? Jeff Winston, 44 Fresh Ponds Road, East Brunswick. So I was really hopeful in coming here tonight, and I'm very happy to hear some of the board members really begin to address the issues here. Our product, if we were to commoditize what we do here, is our children. And Dr. Falco, I think, had the line of the night when she said, you can't put a price tag on experience. So when I hear, as we dive back in again to the 71 line item list, we're still talking about the same thing to the point one of the speakers made, is reducing that experience for the children. Arts, academic, and athletics. I can't help but pause. I came here hoping to hear the other A, that now I guess we have to put up front. So now it's administration, arts, academics, and athletics. $27,000. If you can't find that in this building, you've got to be kidding me. A $27,000 cut somewhere in these four walls? We have an oversized accounting department using archaic software that ultimately resulted in a $3 million error 4 years ago because someone didn't put a line item, a box number in an Excel spreadsheet. You're talking about translation services where I have on my kid's computer at home translating all day and you're paying for that? I have on my phone a button I could hit if I'm around somebody in, I think, 300 languages. And that's what we're talking about? You shouldn't be cutting one coach, you shouldn't be cutting one program or anything in this district before something's done in this building. President Guas, you have one employee. He's sitting to your right. A board's job is to deliver an edict, not to run the district, but to assure it runs well. How you do not turn to your right and say, find us $1 million in this building and run efficiently so our commoditized product, our students, to Dr. Falco's point, could have the best experience ever, that's what we're talking about? It's shameful. I like the questions tonight. Dr. Figueroa, thank you. Dr. Falco, thank you. Dr. Pan, thank you. Mr. Cummings, thank you. You're looking at the right things. Don't compromise what we do here. Students first. Trim the fat in this building, Ms. Guas. Then you won't have any of these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winston.
Hi, Neil Shaw, 1 Jennifer Court. So I've been hearing a lot about the cuts that we're making and things like that, but have we been thinking outside of the box? If you have a $6,000 stipend, what about the parents? I know there's a lot of parents out there that would be willing to do fundraisers. I'm a part of an organization, Fast Break, and we have 5 amazing board members like you guys that sit around and figure out how we can make the money, right? So if you have a baseball team and you need $6,000 or $30,000 for that year to run, can we not fundraise? Can we not pay for the schools? For example, I work 2 days in the office and I get to work 3 days at home. The 2 days, Tuesday is required. Are you guys looking at those requirements for the parents? If you're only going to give me a bus service for my child 1 day a week, is it going to be respectful for all the parents that are working from home as well as that have to go into the office? So these are thoughts. I think that we need to be a little bit more transparent in that. Like, what are you guys doing to help bridge the gap? Not just make cuts, not to come up here and argue, but to kind of just bring together the community and say, hey, these are ideas, this is where we're at short. Can we figure this out together? We are East Brunswick, right? All of us here. are here on a Tuesday night because we care about East Brunswick. You guys are up here, volunteers. You guys care about East Brunswick. Let's work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Dom Sclafani, 6 Fairview Road. I did move. I think it'll be beneficial to hear from a former athlete. Dr. Figueroa, Dr. Falco, and Mr. Cummings hit it right on the head before. You can't take away from our experiences here. In fact, I played 9th grade football. I know for a fact I would not have seen a moment on the field if I was just playing JV. And in fact, I know that because the 9th graders would be on the sidelines with the JV during the game, and we would maybe go in if it was a blowout. So if I was on the sideline for the whole season, I didn't get one snap, one play, I wouldn't want to continue playing. That's demoralizing. Demoralizing to me, that's demoralizing to the kids. I truly think there's another way. And as for the volunteer coach thing, like, I get you want to have the best of the best, but I mean, parents volunteer their time with Little League all the time. What's the difference? I just don't think this was properly thought out. Great questions from the board members. I really just think how this affects the students. When I was in high school, I'm not sure if it's still there, but there was a big banner that said, "We are EB, we are one." So really think about that, because it really doesn't feel like that anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Dom.
Jan Bregman, 4 Troy Court.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Jan Bregman, 4 Troy Court. So just to understand the number one more time, are you saying increased taxes 3.57%, right? And that will cover what? It will cover 8 million budget shortcut, or and 1 million that we didn't have from state? Can you maybe clarify one more time what it will cover?
I'm sorry, sir. The good of the cause is your opportunity to speak. We don't engage in a back and forth.
But I think you need to clarify for everyone. Okay?
Thank you.
Dan Acciani, 43 Gates Avenue. Good evening. What's happening tonight is frankly disheartening. The leadership vacuum on this board and the administrative mismanagement have brought us to a point where you're effectively insulting our intelligence by spitting in our face and telling us it's raining. The inability to manage a budget responsibly, coupled with the complete lack of creativity in addressing deficits, has once led us again to, you guessed it, raising taxes. Let's be honest here, Victor, that burden doesn't affect you, or Bernie if he was here. It falls squarely on the residents you continue to underestimate and disregard. Just 2 months ago, you sat there presenting budget shortfall options. Near the bottom of the list was closing Bound Monroe. That wasn't planning, that was misdirection. Because what you left under that line item is what you did tonight, which was raise taxes. Bound Monroe was a distraction to keep the public looking elsewhere while you went back to raiding their wallets. And I'll say it again what I said at the last meeting. Victor and Bernie, it's time to resign. With the damage and disruption you've caused the district, resignation is honestly the least you could do. But here's what's really sad. It's the board's job to hold the administration accountable. Not the mayor's, not the town council's, yours. You campaigned for votes. You stood before residents with plans and promises, but when it came time to lead and evaluate, to oversee and protect the district, you fell silent. Or worse, were complicit. Victor, everyone knows you want a contract extension. You also know the tides are turning, especially after tonight. You're a boat guy. You understand when the prevailing winds are no longer at your back. So let me speak clearly now to the board and to the residents of the district. Victor knows his time is running out, and after the last election, his control over the board has weakened. His tactics of bullying and intimidating only worked on a shrinking few. But the winds are changing, Victor, and the truth is the town doesn't want you here anymore. They definitely don't want your contract extended. But you only need a majority of votes on the board, a board you continue to manipulate, pressure, and now try to silence with the new document that was Oprah requested that it showed you attempted to prevent a board member from making an independent decision on your extension. That's not leadership, that's desperation. Victor, you don't care about this district anymore, and it's obvious. Your only goal is to secure that bag one more time, get that contract extension before November, so when you get fired, you can walk away with nearly $1.5 million of our money. Just so you can sail off quietly in your tiny little boat. The board allowed this to happen. They stood by spineless while integrity slipped through their hands and the public trust evaporated. It's frankly embarrassing to watch elected adults fold to a man who's given this district nothing but an increasing tax bill. Resign, Victor, and
15
spare
seconds.
Thank you. Resign, Victor, and spare yourself the spectacle. Thank you for your time, and go Bears.
Thank you. All right, if there's no one else, I'm going to close the public portion. All right, we have a need for a closed session. Whereas the Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting, and whereas these subjects are within the exception to the Open Public Meeting Act and are permitted to be discussed in closed session pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12B, and whereas the Board of Education intends to discuss matters as follows, all items listed on tonight's agenda. Whereas the length of the closed session is estimated to be 1 hour, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and action will not be taken. Can I have a motion, please? Ms. Pan and Jamie, right? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we are in closed. Thank you.
Anybody wants to leave, they go out there.